This isolated microchip represents a coder who has memorized language syntax, but lacks the context of how that logic fits into a broader machine. There is a massive chasm between writing a script that prints text to a screen and engineering a professional application that millions of people can use simultaneously. Modern companies look for engineers who can bridge that gap. People who know how databases, servers, and user interfaces communicate as a single living product. Learning to code without understanding these architectural connections is like owning a pile of bricks but lacking a blueprint to build the house. The 30-day .NET Full Stack course provides the specific framework needed to cross from writing isolated scripts to building professional systems. The syllabus follows the spatial architecture used in enterprise software. It maps out 3 distinct layers that must work in unison. This approach takes dozens of complex, intimidating tools and groups them into logical, masterable buckets over the span of a single month. By visualizing the course as an architectural blueprint, you begin thinking like an engineer from the very first minute. Day 1 focuses entirely on mapping the foundational terrain. We set the rules of construction before writing a single line of code. We start with the Software Development Lifecycle, or SDLC. This is the mandatory framework used by professional teams to plan, build, and maintain software. Next, we untangle the Microsoft environment. This timeline shows how 2 legacy branches evolved and eventually merged back together into the current unified standard, .NET 8. Once the history is clear, we move to the final technical steps: installing Visual Studio, configuring the environment, and executing your first C# application. Mastering this foundational ecosystem right away prevents the setup errors that cause many developers to quit in frustration. With the foundation poured, we assemble the first architectural layer, the backend, which functions as the brain and memory of the application. We use object-oriented programming in C# to structure the internal logic. This dictates the specific rules the software must follow to operate. But a program without a database is a program with no memory. SQL Server handles this by securely storing and managing all user data. Here, Entity Framework Core materializes between our logic and database, translating C# directly to SQL. This entire system is then encapsulated inside a server box. A RESTful Web API port opens on the surface to securely expose this logic. This backend layer is the engine required to power any modern enterprise application. Raw server data is only half the story. We need a front-end user interface, so people can actually interact with the system. We teach the core visual languages: HTML for structure, CSS for styling, and JavaScript for dynamic client-side interaction. This triangle represents ASP.NET Core MVC. When a user sends an input, a pulse hits the controller, pulls data from the model, and illuminates the view to render the web page. Mastering the front end allows you to turn abstract, invisible server data into a tangible product. There is one final layer that glues professional development teams together: version control. We use Git and GitHub to track every code change, allowing multiple engineers to collaborate on the same project without deleting each other's work. By branching the code into an isolated testing lane, you can experiment freely and then merge successful work back into the main path once it is verified. Fluency in version control is a baseline requirement for joining a real-world development team. At the end of the month, these layers stack into a single, unified monolith, with data moving from the user interface, through the API, and into the database. This architectural knowledge culminates in the final stage of the course, the creation of a real-time portfolio project. A functioning version-controlled project demonstrates to an employer that you can navigate the same technical hurdles they face in their daily development cycles. You will finish the course with the ability to develop web applications, construct REST APIs, and manage complex GitHub repositories. By day 30, the ability to build and troubleshoot these interconnected layers replaces the early confusion of day 1. This shift from syntax to systems is what qualifies a developer for the modern workforce. Like a sky rising from its foundation, your career requires a structural base. Open day 1, install Visual Studio, and begin construction.